freight and fire.
Welcome back to Cargo Chronicles. Harbor Freight Transport talks logistics industry. We've got our perennial guest, Eric Trout, Senior Vice President of Harbor Freight Transport, here back with us to keep a leash on me. And we've got our first guest. We're really happy to introduce Chris Machut of SiteTrax.io. I know I got the company right. Did I get the last name right, Chris?
Mock like a mockingbird, hoot as an owl hoots. That's how I remember Machut. Chris Machut.
Machut. Ooh, I like that. We get owls and mockingbirds. Ooh, I like that.
And trout, right? Some fish.
And trout. And trout. Yeah, it goes all together.
Wow, I'm getting hungry. Fish and chick. Never mind. That will take us down a whole different one. So, before I jump into everything, Eric, Harbor Freight Transport had some news this week, did they not?
Yeah, we had some really exciting news coming off of the heels of TPM 2026. Harbor, we've been looking at expanding our footprint up in New York and New Jersey area, and we have just recently opened up an additional 75,000 square feet at our Kearney, New Jersey facility. So our warehouse facility, that's more of a conventional warehouse facility versus our headquarters where we have our heavy lifting equipment, the cranes and reach stackers, etc., indoor cranes. So Kearney is more of a traditional warehouse. That facility was 175,000 square feet. And we just took over the additional 75,000 square feet that is attached to the building. So there's a drive-through door from our existing facility. That additional 75,000 square feet is currently now available. We are in the process of getting the bond extended over into our Class 3 customs bond extended over into that space, which will increase our footprint of Class 3 bonded storage. But we also, with that space, gain a lot of extra container parking area, right? So it gives us a lot more yard space. So very excited about the additional growth in the New York and New Jersey market, and looking forward to continuing to grow in other spaces.
All right. So one quick question. I'm going to tap back on an old episode where we talked about nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
How many crates of bolts can you put in 75,000 square feet?
Well, wow.
This is going to make it onto the shorts reel.
Yeah, if it's just bulk, floor loaded, where you can't double stack, I would say conservatively, close to 2,000 pallets, positions on the floor. But if you can stack that cargo, that volume exponentially goes up.
That's a lot of nuts.
That is, yeah.
All right. You were at TPM recently, and you met our guest, Chris. When you met him, what was it like? What made you go, wow, boom, let's bring him on the show?
Because it's what Chris and his company do. I would say it's one of the areas of the industry a lot of people don't put a lot of effort and time into. And that's yard management, in and out gate transactions, knowing where your assets are at any given time. So those types of operations are absolutely critical in today's environment, right? When you look at our industry, you only have a certain amount of free time when you pull containers out of the port with that container. So you then have to return it back. Multiple customers and multiple companies have multiple drop yards, in particular in like a crowded, congested area like Newark, New Jersey, right? I know Harbor alone, we have, right now, we'll call it 4 different potential, container yards where we're going to position equipment and knowing where all of those pieces of equipment are at a given time can be a real challenge. And, a lot of people don't put a lot of capital investment into that. They will go around with the proverbial yard check guy. Could be somebody in a pickup truck or fancy golf cart with a clipboard, and that yard check or that inventory is only as good as that one snapshot instance, right? Because just as somebody's doing that yard check and the guy's loitering around in his golf cart and he says, yep, here's 53102 and it's in that position. 15 minutes later, he or she doesn't know that a trucker's already been dispatched to go pull that piece of equipment, and now it could be at another drop yard location. So knowing where all the assets are at any given time in real time, knowing the true location, it really boils down to hard dollars and cents. And we'll get into how those costs can be very costly, if you don't know where your equipment is at all times.
All right. So before we jump into directly into SiteTrax, Chris, you've been in technology, building technology. You've been a technology entrepreneur. Let's use that phrase for the last 20 years. And as I was going through your bio, one of the cool things I saw was before you founded SiteTrax.io, you built a company called HoistCam, which to me sounds like GoPro for heavy equipment or marine operators.
Good way to describe it, Fred. Yeah, when I sold my first company almost 15, 20 years ago, had a little bit of idle time and wanted to try to figure out what I wanted to do next, and got really tied into boating. Learned really quickly that these vessels, especially once you start getting over 30 feet, can't see. There's blind spots. And I had never been like a tower crane operator or reach stacker loader operator or ship to shore crane operator operating these big machines. And Eric, you mentioned even your facilities, these crane operators, they can get, I didn't believe it one time. We had a customer call us that was an overhead crane operator and said, yeah, every pick I do is in the blind. And I'm sitting here going, but dude, you're in the rafters. You're literally looking down. And he's like, why don't you come and see? And I went, oh, it's because all the stuff's in the way. I didn't get that. Or tower crane going behind a building and so on and so forth. And that's where HoistCam was invented. It's been selling on the market for over 12 years now. It kind of blows my mind. We sell it all over the world. My amazing staff run that company. It's built by an amazing team. And where SiteTrax really came from was these construction sites that would use the HoistCam. The operator would be able to see what was going on. The manager would ask the same question. Well, I have no clue that he just moved asset A to point B. And like, well, why doesn't he just pick up his radio and go, asset A has been moved to point B? Well, then do that several hundred times, and that's why. It just doesn't get relayed. So he asked the obvious question, well, can't that camera just identify everything? What do you mean? And that's where my journey in AI started with computer vision over a decade ago, really trying to understand what was going on, seeing where the tech stack was, seeing what the different opportunities in all the different markets. There's no such thing as industrial transportation, maritime, and logistics markets when you're doing a new product for anything. You have to stay niche. So as we were kind of like trying to feel things out, trying to figure out what the market and demand for people being able to know where their stuff is, this thing called the pandemic happened. I think you guys had been part of that party once before.
Yeah,
all did. Well, that's when it just blew open the doors on containers everywhere. Nobody knew where anything was.
Yeah.
We had several 3PLs that knew in our local area that we did the HoistCam, and one of them had this idea of, can we just mount your camera on a yard hostler and can you identify everything for us? I'm like, Why is that a problem for you? Not being from that niche, we've done nuclear power plants, construction sites. He goes, let me tell you why. You ever hear about detention? You ever heard about demurrage? Have you ever heard about turn times? Have you ever heard about dwell times? I'm like, no. Well, that costs us money or makes us money. It depends on what side of the fence we're sitting on. At the end of the day, they literally had no visibility into where any of their assets were, and they needed an easy way to be able to take any camera, and that's what we basically developed with SiteTrax. You can point any iPhone, any Android, any security camera at assets, identify its asset ID, the type of ID, the chassis that it's on, the truck that pulled it in, the trailer, what the assets outside the warehouse door into infinity anywhere in your facility.
Okay, so you've run into you started to merge in towards SiteTrax. Before we do that again, so how big were the hoist cams?
They take up about an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, about that big. They're good size. They're good size. They're designed to run like the entire day, basically an entire working shift, and providing a real stream, real time for the heavy equipment operator.
And what's the range on them?
Up to 3,000 feet. We've deployed them on barges and towboats and overhead cranes.
All right,
power cranes, reach stackers, container loaders.
You just triggered me. Has anyone ever taken one of these things and just set it up so there's a live stream that goes out to the public so people could watch stuff?
I wonder if that's a thing. You mean those webcams? No, you would not want to do that with our system. You can get a $50 webcam that can do that. Ours is designed to literally purpose built for a point-to-point, interference-free, near real-time feed for that operator, so he can see what he's doing. Not being fed online, just immediate backup camera on steroids for these multi-million-dollar machines.
All right, I was just thinking it'd be fun to put it on the AutoZone parking lot so everyone else could hear and see what I see at the weird hours of the night. So, all right, we won't go in there. Go ahead, Eric.
Well,
you're going to jump in.
Yeah, I will have to say, Fred, though, I mean, if speaking to this community, a great website, which does have somewhat live webcams into the terminals by location, is called peertrucker.com. I'd encourage you guys to take a look at that. It's a website, I would say, for the trucking community, developed by the trucking community. So they do have live feeds of the actual ocean terminals, like the in gates and everything, so you can see the truck traffic. But there's also a great, you want to have some great reading. Go to the blog page and read some of the blogs, what the truckers sitting in line, at these terminals, what they're coming up with. It's great reading. But
whoa, boy.
Yeah. That's actually really neat, man. I just tried to pull up. Don't type PEER trucker.
Right.
PIER trucker.com. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
And we're talking about this idea for Harbor Freight website. I like this. This is really cool. So, all right. So let's move into SiteTrax. You've already kind of delineated what you were trying to solve with SiteTrax. What was the initial reception you found when you launched it?
The initial reception that we found was, that is cool. And as an entrepreneur, cool doesn't mean customers. Cool means, okay, now what? We learned really quick that we were creating some pretty amazing data, but nobody knew what to do with it. Now that they actually had the data, there was a lot of deer in headlights of,
how do we use this?
Go into my TMS? Does this go into my spreadsheet? Do I print it out on a piece of paper and then double check that it's actually doing what it said it did? What do we do with this next? And that was actually a really interesting discovery journey with the customers we were talking with. We had some customers that would literally just push it to another spreadsheet and they would use that. which just killed me as a technology advocate. I was like, okay, so we just did the fat fingering of this into the spreadsheet for you, but you're still not really gaining value at it because you're just looking at when this entered, and you're not maybe preventing detention, demurrage, reduced dwell times, turn times, all that fun stuff. Proof of delivery, proof of pickup.
All right, so I've seen this before. You give. I recently in the work I've been doing for other things, the K-Fred radio station primarily, I've been back doing old school Linux commands that I was doing 40 years ago. It seems to chase me no matter what. But once people started, how did you get people to realize what they could do with the data you were developing? Because the more software and people still use it the old school way, getting them to change that mentality. So how did you get people to change that mentality on what to do with the data?
Well, it was more our mentality of understanding what they wanted to do with the data. I didn't realize that from the small subset of 3PLs that we initially fed it to, the spreadsheets were fine for them. But when we started going to like larger 3PLs, they kind of laughed at us and went, well, why isn't this going into our YMS? Why isn't this going to our TOS? Why isn't this going into our TMS? And we asked the same question. Well, why isn't? Why isn't it? And it really pushed us through for a partnership model that we've been doing for the last 2 years now of being able to feed a lot of these disparate systems with better data. So there's really this adage that we've been able to identify just in terms of the market. There's so many of these control systems, these TMSs, YMSs, WMSs that are built that require this thing, the finger, to be doing the data entry into that system. If that finger doesn't do the data entry into that system, do you really get an ROI on it? So what we had found is when we had developed our APIs to be able to push into those systems that our customers wanted, it really amplified the value of the data. And that's really the catch, is just because you create the data doesn't mean you have the control or you have the decision making. We found we created something very valuable, but it's useless if you have 30,000 records in a spreadsheet and you go, now what?
Yeah, you kind of mirror some of the stuff I've been going through recently. Eric, jump in. I've been talking a lot.
No, it's good. I'm going to have a disruption here shortly. My daughter just got home, so but no, it's that there's so much data available out there. I can see, Chris, where it's discouraging at times, right? Because it's kind of like, what do you do with it, right? And a lot of people get just shut down by the volumes of data, right? So I think, once you have a clear objective and a clear path as to where you want to go, right, that's when the data becomes extremely valuable, and you can realize the hard dollars and cents that it makes, right, to be able to capture.
Oh, absolutely. And the complexity of it. And we had thought, and I had this hypothesis a while ago, that we didn't want to be yet another YMS system. We didn't want to be yet another TMS system. We didn't want to be another TOS system. We wanted to stay in our swim lane, do what we do really well, and be able to facilitate data creation. And a lot of that, I will admit, was a great foundational layer for the disparity of the different systems, Eric, that we've seen out there. But I don't know if this is the right time for that kind of segue. AI has really changed all of that.
Now, yeah, we're going to go there real quick. So I was going to ask, I've been using, I got dragged as an old school tech, got dragged kicking and screaming into the AI age by my partner, the creative one. And since that, I can tell you which ones have gotten crappier and crappier. People seem to think AI is this magic thing that will do all their work. When you talk about your AI, what do you want to know? what's different about your platform's AI that people should know is the question I'm trying to get out.
Instead of, they used a couple terms a little bit earlier. It's really two things in any system you deploy across your business, across your operations. It's the data that you ingest, whether or not it's human beings, EDI, telematics, whatever it is, GPS, bill of ladings. It's the data that you get and the decisions that you can ultimately make. We started at the data layer because we were seeing this just in the sheer magnitude of different interfaces to interface with the data. Nobody was creating amazing data. I will say my team has done an amazing job of creating over 98% accurate data from real world assets that have no other RFID tags, GPS pucks, nothing on them, just taking pictures of things. And the missing piece that we had is we didn't want to compete. We wanted to partner with all of our different partners to make their systems even more valuable to their customers. So it's like a win-win-win situation. One of the key things that we've recently discovered, like in the last 12 to 18 months, and I think everyone else is really seeing this come to fruition, those decision-making layers, those user interfaces can be made at incredible speeds now. They can be deployed at incredible speeds. You need a yard management system that's really basic. You can go to Claude right now and type it in. It's not going to be an enterprise system that you can get from a commercial platform, but it'll give you some pretty basic features that maybe that's all your one drayage yard needs or your warehouse needs. You need a really rudimentary TMS. You can do the same thing. These enterprise systems are amazing in terms of what they can do when they're dialed in and customized for the end user. But now the end user has the ability to get a basic decision-making interface that targets their environment, leveraging platforms such as Claude and OpenAI for $20. Now, the misnomer in all that is that you're going to spend $20 in 5 minutes and profit. You have your interface. Still takes effort, still takes development time. It still takes platforms to run it on and knowledge of how web servers and databases and all this other stuff interoperates. At the end of the day, I'm just super excited about this decision-making layer that is AI that can facilitate any business to take any set of data and make it actionable.
So as you started to talk, and I'll let Eric follow up, but as you started to talk, I'll say you triggered me back to my early IT days and the phrase garbage in, garbage out. And AI just makes it faster if you're putting garbage in, which I love the fact that you're using, simple web cell phone cams to do OCR to identify it. That, to me, takes a whole lot of the garbage in issue away. You still have stupid humans, but
yeah, you can use security cameras. You can use drones. There's robotic dogs that we've talked with some facilities that interested in capturing more just from even just a security aspect, but actually allowing there to be operational intelligence around what is actually going in the facility and pairing into that. It's as long as the imagery is visible from that camera, we can identify it. We can identify it for our customers, provide them the data, and the AI is going to get hungrier and hungrier and hungrier, and kind of tapping into your point of garbage in, garbage out. It's going to get amplified, garbage out with AI and where it's going, because it's going to get more and more hungry. One of the analogies I've used is, I'm sure you've all heard about these data centers that are being built all around the country, Eric and Fred.
Yeah.
It's hard to miss, right? It's in the news everywhere. I think it's funny. They're called data centers. They're not called AI centers.
Right.
They're putting AI in all these data centers because those AI platforms are going to be begging for data once they've ingested it all. And it's going to be amplifying how terrible supply chain, the visibility, the discontinuity. It's not an easy problem to solve. That AI is going to be amplifying that unsanitized data stack that is our global supply chain.
Right. Yeah, that's, one of the things that just came to my mind, which is really, I'm dating myself, and I've been in this industry 28 years, and
Youngster.
the trucking, well, the transportation community, I'd have to say we as an industry have been on the forefront and of adopting and accepting technology, right? So when I first got into the industry, drivers didn't have cell phones, right? They just had a bag full of quarters, and they'd have to pull over, find a payphone, and make a check call. Then I went to pagers, and then all of a sudden, here comes Qualcomm with onboard computers, etc. But one of the things about your technology, Chris, and the statement that you made about, just using an Android phone or any type of a camera, every single ocean terminal in the United States, when you drive through that gate, it has OCR, right? And it's reading the container number. It's taking a multitude of pictures and all that. And it's just mind-boggling to me to think back of the capital expenditure dollars that those terminals had to invest, right, in order to put that infrastructure in. Whereas essentially what I know about your technology is you could have just had two poles and, mounted a single camera up there, right? And it would capture all the same information, right? And come out with the end result. So in terms of AI, I always love that visualization of man's first flight. Here's Orville and Wilbur Wright, and then, it grows exponentially, and next thing you know, we're landing on the moon, right? And technology and computers and everything, and now the AI. I don't even know what that growth curve looks like. It might just be straight up and down, right? So when these data centers get built out, like you said, and they're going to be hungry for the data, that's going to be exciting, right? See how much we can possibly throw at them and what types of efficiencies it can create. Efficiencies for everyday workers in the field, but data accuracy as well, right? Because how many times does the old human just mess up? Real life example, when I was at in my LTL days, we didn't have automated docks, and you just had carbon copies of, outbound load manifests. And if somebody had a horrible penmanship, which they don't even teach in school anymore, is it a 7? Is it a 9? Just one digit. And next thing you know, your shipment could be across the continent, you're lost because it gets put on the wrong outbound schedule. So, the data integrity and the AI, the advances, it's creating efficiencies for our industry that I think is just, it's exciting to be a part of right now.
All right. So back to the data center, my theory is they're going to build all these data centers. They're going to turn them all on, and the power is going to go out because no one saw enough to build enough power generation, especially in California. And therefore, we'll all be in the dark. The young folk will go crazy because they can't look at their phones because those will die and nothing will get done. But that's just an old tech guy's theory. Because we're going to build all these things, but we ain't going to build what they need. So before we go on that, how will the AI, I find I've been able to avoid hiring consultants on stuff because I can use AI. And even then it has to be I found I have to remind it of things because otherwise it loops off on tangents. All that said, how many jobs will AI replace, at least in the logistics industry? Any comments, any thoughts? I realize that anytime we wipe out a whole lot of jobs, there used to be a whole lot of people take notes, handwritten notes, and now people use a phone.
I want to make a caveat note to this. Before we start trying to get into crystal balling something that I don't think any of us could really
I
put
know.
a pin in, we've kind of taken a stance in our organization. You have every right to be anti-AI or pro-AI. I mean, that's your own personal choice. I can tell you, as a business owner, I am pro-productivity and reduce stress for my teams. We've even been talking internally. We're getting to the point that it's amplifying the productivity of each of our team members, that we're starting to do like the holy ungrail of supply chain, which is reducing hours for our staff, but not reducing pay, because they're embracing it better. The business, I find it, if I can empower my staff and my team members to reduce their burden, make more revenue for the business, reduce everyone's stress, they should also be compensated for that. So from a just purely business owner standpoint, you're absolutely insane not to embrace AI.
Mm-hmm.
From an employee, you're absolutely insane not to want to sit there and have to, I've been there, having to craft the perfect email for an hour and a half.
Right.
When you can get the core concepts down that you want about it, get a draft generated by AI, think on it, maybe do some other tasks, come back to it later, look at it again, revise it a little bit, then send it out, instead of the constant drudgery of, oh, is my punctuation right? And did I have my grammar correct? And so on and so forth. The productivity gains, I would never hire someone that didn't embrace it, whether they like the end result or not. With that said, it's primarily because of what I just mentioned before: the reduced stress, the better time to think, the capability to implement more, the capability of being more productive. What has been really kind of interesting and sad to me is I was reading studies just a couple weeks ago, and Eric and Fred, I don't know if you saw them. Tech workers are getting more burnt out with AI because their bosses are doing the exact opposite. I'm going to fire these 10 guys. Fred, you've got AI. You need to replace all 10 of them. Do all 10 of their work. And you're just like deer in headlights going, are you kidding me? I don't even know how to use AI. Is it an LLM? Is it an analytical AI? Am I using agents? Where do you even start with all this?
Similar concept, right? I think if you're not embracing AI, one, you're doing your organization a disservice, right? Just because of the efficiencies. And I'm a firm believer of employee satisfaction and career ladders, right? Nobody likes to be doing the same job day in and day out, with no advance in career. There's a lot of those positions historically within transportation and logistics. Call them a desk clerk or, yard checker or dock worker, et cetera, right? So they have certain mundane tasks they do day in and day out. Why are we not embracing AI to be able to free them up, repurpose that person's time, especially if they are, hiring people is difficult and challenging in today's workforce. So when you get a real quality employee, I'm a firm believer of a career ladder, right? Do they believe in the company mission? Are they, a strong performer? Will they go the extra mile, et cetera? They should be rewarded monetarily, title wise, position wise. And I think in in our industry, there's a lot of people that just get pigeonholed into this is your job function. That's what you're going to do, and that's historically how the industry has been there. You see some of these people have been there 25, 30 years doing the same exact stuff, right? Whereas if you embrace AI, how can we make that person more efficient in their job, get that one task done? Where can we repurpose that positive energy that person has for the company and, give them a career ladder? So it's, I think about some of the complexities that we have in my particular industry with the out of gauge project and cargo. Right now it's all manual calculations, and we're starting to embrace AI a little bit, where we can take the dimensions of said cargo coming in, put it into an AI. It could be a picture, it could be spreadsheet, or it could just be an email, and then dump that into AI platform and give it a simple command like convert to inches and pounds, and put it into a usable spreadsheet, and bam, here you go. You've got something that's tangible, versus somebody having to regurgitate and enter in that information into a spreadsheet anyway, right? So you're creating those efficiencies, but at the same point in time, you have that data there, right? So why not take it a step farther and say, here are the dimension, here are the weights, can you do a skeleton of possibly what this rate quote would look like on this, right? Given said dimensions. So, yeah, it's exciting, right? I agree 100% with Chris, right? Let's not think about how it can replace employees. How can it enrich the current workforce, and give them a career ladder or better quality of life?
So I agree with everything you said. My perspective, whatever, I use it. It makes me more efficient. I can do stuff that I'd normally have to job out to other people. I can get it done. Where I see the job issue coming is, yes, tech companies are firing folks. Where I look at it is in both of your organizations, if you're utilizing these people, the people you have, and they're getting more and more done, ultimately, there's not the need to hire more people. So in other words, you're keeping people, you're not, some of them are firing, but you're keeping people, but you don't need to hire new people nearly as fast as you did. And there's an old Twilight Zone episode about so quote AI taking over plant automation, and eventually the plant manager gets fired because they don't need him anymore. So let's stop talking this. I want to reel us back into more
Right.
about SiteTrax. So I'm going to be, just for those listening, really blunt. How does SiteTrax, what type of real-time visibility does SiteTrax give its clients like Harbor Freight or anybody else? What's that visibility they're getting?
Excellent question. You ever sat there as a trucker, as a dispatcher, as a CEO, BCO, 3PL, 4PL, and asked three words? This is what SiteTrax does. And those three words is, where's my stuff? And
Yeah,
usually
that's not what you meant to say.
Usually a trucker doesn't say that.
Yeah, I know what the last word was, but we don't want to be, we want to be business friendly here.
Well, you should see the T-shirts that we have, and love to get you guys some T-shirts. It actually just has
I'm always happy for a T-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. The punchline is, that's what it really comes down to. If ever asking that, I just learned, as a new outsider, the technologist, I love the B2B side. I love what all our trucking community, crane operators to the guys that actually move all these machines do. And I learned very quickly that as a consumer, stuff doesn't just magically appear on the Walmart shelf. There's actually a system that drives the global supply chain. And the short of it, with 3PLs, even the good 3PLs that I learned about, their BCOs, their shippers, they love, but who they have to love even more, I learned, is their truckers. Because a trucker will go on Google and give them a 1-star review because they couldn't find their stuff when they went to the facility. Although as a shipper, I might go onto the 3PL site to find, well, can you actually get this load for me from the port of blah, blah, blah. It was a really interesting dynamic that the truckers themselves would give the Google reviews to the 3PLs, and treating them well is in everyone's best interest. And the last thing you want to do to a trucker is tell them to go pick up a load at warehouse 16 and it's not there. And then they have to play the hunting game or the wrong drayage yard and that's just like one niche in the where's my stuff paradigm of stuff being grabbed that shouldn't have been grabbed and grew legs and went out the gate entryway, to stuff that came in that should have never came in. Stuff that's been there for 10 years. I'll never forget this with one of the ports, and just kind of keeping the guilty innocent in this conversation.
Good.
Did a port move and had to move tens of thousands of containers. It was amazing how they found 10 to 15 lost containers when they were there the whole time.
Yeah, there's stories like that in the industry every single day, and it's that's the sad thing about it is people just look at that and they say, oh well, that's the driver's issue, right? Well, it's not. It's the driver only gets paid when the wheels are turning, right? So
when the wheels are turning with his load, not if he's running around with a bobtail, or just a
we had the instance the other day, real time instance, but we'll put some dollars and cents to it, right? It's a drop. It's a 24/7 drop, container distribution center out in Pennsylvania, and thousands of containers out there. And the driver went out, delivered the container that they were supposed to, dropped it, and they were supposed to pick up an empty. Right. And it's always pick up the longest dwelling empty. So driver has the list of the empties. This is the one I'm supposed to get. Goes into the yard management control tower there at the drop yard. That empty's not here. Where is it? It's over there. It's in that other yard. Driver goes to that yard. So long story made short, after about 6 hours of that driver's time, they've finally, and there was a bunch of iterations of, well, no, it shows in the system it's at that yard. It has to be at that yard. Well, the driver went to the yard, driver looked at every single container, and it's clearly not there. So data was bad in that yard management system. It cost the driver time. It cost it cost our company the fuel. Potentially that driver could have come back empty and not pulled that, it just would have bobtailed back, right?
It amplifies,
and that would have been a wasted move,
I think of opportunity cost. Not just for that driver opportunity cost, but your whole team. The other things that they could be driving revenue for the business or getting their jobs done. And I've heard it a number of times. All hands on deck. We got to find this one container in the yard. I mean, it just oversimplified.
Right.
You have an entire dispatch team outside hunting for a container. You've got to really level set yourself and be like, is this really the way I want to do business?
Right.
All right.
Nobody wants to do that.
So I'm not sure. I think I've heard, but I'm going to come with the question anyways. From a client perspective, what's the most expensive mistake in logistics that can be made? And how do you help mitigate that or avoid it or reduce it? Go ahead.
I had to make a guess from what I've heard. Eric, I'm really interested in, do you want to go first, man? Or
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've heard easily 6-figure metrics for the, and there's this, and I don't want to go into the theft versus not theft debate. There's long-term borrowing of containers that happens sometimes, okay? When does insurance claim get filed? When did it leave that facility? Where is it now? When did it get picked up? The guy did an honest mistake. He grabbed the wrong load. Just simple, really simple thing that gets amplified because They find it out the next day, and he tied up in Phoenix, and now he's in Washington State, and nobody knows that because his load is still sitting there, and everyone just assumes he hadn't shown up yet.
Right.
But now you have a load that didn't go when it should have, and a load that's not there anymore, and he delivers it. He does his job. He goes on to the next one, and you have a massive disconnect here. You now have a load that's stolen, a load that was never delivered, and waiting on another, and then calling up, and who connects the dots?
Sorry,
Yep.
you just triggered me. Is there a place where you can go to order one of these new sheds, old shipping containers?
Oh yeah, just look up used ocean container sales, and
So
I'm sure you can get them.
Harbor Freight Transporter or SiteTrax doesn't have a sideline there.
No, I can't help you there. Can't help you there.
All right.
Chris might have a bounty or something, right, where he can find them and pay. Actually, that you talk about that, and I'm dating myself, but in some of the old trade, trucker trade magazines, the weekly publications, they used to have, missing persons of equipment, right? It's like if you see this trailer, company XYZ 53102 reported to X, and you'll get $500-600 just for locating lost equipment. It's an industry old problem, right? And with Chris's technology and his team and what he's what SiteTrax has been able to develop, just using everybody has one of these things nowadays, right? It's as simple as that. So it's pretty amazing.
All right. So the gist of this is SiteTrax lets you track where your stuff is at any time. And that helps the shipper, the receiver, everyone, because now it's not lost, not stolen, which cuts down on a whole bunch of angst and dollar amounts paid. So my question is what in, we'll say until the end of 2027. So I'm going to ask you to look out 21 months. What's in the future for SiteTrax between now and the end of 2027?
A decision-making protocol, effectively. And
very cool.
The capability that you can today just sign up for SiteTrax. You can scan 100 containers for free and do whatever you want with it, whatever you want to do with the data. 100 containers is not overwhelming to scan or to know, oh, okay, yeah, I scanned it at this point in time, and do whatever you want to do with that data. We've found customers that start getting beyond that 100 metric. They a lot of times will go, well, I need it here, but I also need it there, but I just need this with the data. Can you help us with that? And we're doing our best to continue to leverage our partners. We have some amazing partners we're working with to amplify the value of the data that SiteTrax is able to produce as quickly and as, I think the right term might be, actionably possible, meaning you can actually make decisions, take action on it, and not just go, okay, I got 100 containers scanned. I have their GPS coordinates, timestamp, asset ID, their specific location, a picture and a video of it. So what? And we're eliminating that so what alongside our partners to bring immediate value to that data set.
That's yeah. So I'm going to warn you, and Erica, I'll tell you, I'm a bulldog on this, but you're going to come back on and talk about it when you got that out, because that's really, the fact that he's here tells you how much of a bulldog of I get my teeth into some. So you got to come back and give us updates on this, because that's just
love to
too
show
cool.
you it. And everyone's seen the TMSs and the YMSs and all that stuff, and a lot of them are adding in like their chat bots. This is not that. This is the AI first. And AI, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it only really hit the supply chain starting last year. And even then, people were bringing out alpha releases of it. So anyone that is, watching this and going, thinking that a vendor is going to say, I'm going to immediately replace your YMS and your TMS and your TOS system. Tell them to prove it, and then you'll believe it. Because I am in it daily. It's not easy to do, to build these systems, enterprise systems. AI can do some incredible things, but apply the right guardrails when you're deploying it with any vendor. We have some great partners that leverage a lot of different AI stacks, and they have subject matter expertise. I think, Eric, one of my favorite comments from TPM, where you and I connected, was there are so many AI companies here, and they're 24-year-olds walking around that don't even know what the acronym 3PL, TOS, TMS, YMS, WMS even means. And they're trying to tell me that they're going to reduce our costs and make me more money.
Right.
So
How?
I will tell you, when you started going with YMS and all those things, I'm thinking CMS, content management system. But so
they're niche content management systems.
right.
Yeah.
And I pegged that out. And I figured that out. For me, it comes more of they want to tell you how everything's done, and yet they have no clue of how to do it old school way. And that's
That's the thing. Having the subject matter experts, putting guardrails in play, and just a little plug for what I'm trying to be a good steward. I'm trying to be a good steward with AI as well, of facilitating knowledge sharing. So just if I can, just doing a little plug for the Intermodal Association in North America as well. They're putting in a recommended practices guide that should be launched in May. Stay tuned to that, because that'll be a guide that I've helped them develop, doing a series of 4 different webinars on what we call the 4 pillars of AI that I would love for you guys to share with your audience. But it really helping to facilitate, what is this thing called an LLM? Like, truly, what can it do for my business? What are these agents that Chris alluded to, and analytical AI, and all these different kinds of systems, such as the applied AI that SiteTrax does? They're not all the same. All of them have different capabilities, just like a hammer is not a wrench, although a wrench could be a hammer.
and sometimes you can use a hammer like a wrench.
Woo, that
All
would
right.
be an interesting one.
So I got one question, and then I want to ask Eric about 2027 and Harbor Freight Transport. So, is there a 4 Pillars of AI podcast coming?
There's a 4 Pillars of AI webinar 4-part series. We're looking at extending into the second half of next year to try to get further into it. One of the biggest challenges right now, Fred, is a lot of it is gated to, the content is gated to Intermodal Association of North America members. We're figuring all that out, but obviously you're welcome to talk to me and my team. And we're even participating with ASCM on a additional kind of effort. So we want to be able to get this knowledge out, be able to get this information out, help people, I think, steer through the chaos and the unknowns and the fluff and I just want to get YouTube video clicks and you watch my YouTube. It's really hard to navigate right now, and we're trying to be good stewards at that.
So what I just heard was there is going to be ultimately a 4 Pillars of AI podcast coming. You just haven't gotten all the things laid in yet.
Not sure if it's going to be a podcast. Not sure what it's going to turn into, Fred. I can't predict the future. There could be white papers. There could be websites. There could be documents. There could be who knows.
Right. We're going to talk.
Lectures. Oh, no.
We're going to talk. Don't worry about it, because that's just too cool. All right, Eric, who's learned that, yeah, all of a sudden podcasts kind of grow up around you, even when you're not expecting it. What's up for in the next year and a half? What are we going to see from Harbor Freight? What do you want people to know?
We just implemented a new dispatch system, which does utilize AI in terms of some of the mundane tasks. Like I think the industry has been one of the leaders in capturing screenshots to prove that there's no empty, terminal appointments or no appointments at the terminal to pick up the container. So, our new dispatch system does utilize AI. We're just now getting into that and discovering the efficiencies that it's creating. Harbor, we've been around for 78 years. family-owned company. So we go with what's tried and true and proven. And we're going to continue down that path, but we also are looking at efficiencies that are created through technology, and we've got more of a willingness to embrace that. So we just made the big expansion in Kearney, New Jersey. We got to look at our CapEx dollars and where we're spending it on technology, because technology, we've got to keep up with the times, right? Because we just can't keep throwing people at our problems, right? And so that's a new change of, yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
It's a new path forward for our company. So it's been exciting.
All right. So we're about out of time. Chris, what's one thing that you want to make sure all of your potential clients, anyone who's listening, knows about SiteTrax? Something can be, what's one thing you want everyone to know besides how can people find you, which is coming next? Ooh, another one. I always know when I make people think.
I think you need to find where your stuff is outside the warehouse door. That's the coolest challenge, I think, that plagues virtually every business that is not a multi-billion-dollar port with full-on automation at the gates and automated yard hostlers and reach stackers and cranes, and already have made that investment in full automation. And when you just need that data set, that's what we do. And we understand and have the talent inside our organization to also work with the businesses to guide them through that data. Working with our partners, we don't just lob the data over and say, hey, good luck. It's more of a, I like to say, anywhere from full self-service. If you just want to sign up and use it, use it. If you need help, reach out to it. We actually do respond to our emails and phones. So,
all right. So what I heard there was knowing where your stuff is going to save you money. And that's the number one reason you should use SiteTrax.
Yeah.
You disagree? Okay.
Totally agree. Not only save you money, but make you money too.
So how do people get a hold of you, Chris?
Check us out at SiteTrax with an X. That's SiteTrax.io. Or look me up online on LinkedIn under Chris Machut. Last name's Machut. There's only, I think, one Christopher Machut on LinkedIn so far. Although I think there's one other guy over in France that has the same name as me. But you pull me up. I got some great articles. I try to share as much knowledge as possible of what my amazing team does and what they're building. We have just the most absolutely amazing team that we've built here within the company. But take a look. Proof is in the pudding. www.SiteTrax.io.
Okay. Eric, any final thoughts, words you want to share?
No, I just want to say thank you, Chris, for coming on and joining us. It's
thank you for having me, Eric.
Yeah, I thought it was what your company's doing and the technology. It's very pertinent in today's environment. Where everybody's counting their pennies and looking at the bottom line, right? And this subject, it's been near and dear to my heart, because it's one of those things that throughout my career, been on those teams. Everybody out in the yard, look for this. You're just like. Meanwhile, opportunities passing, right? You could have had 17, 18 different loads, that you could be making revenue on, and you're wasting time on non-value, activities. So it's been great having you on this, and really appreciate it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I'm Fred McMurray with Eric Trout, talking with Chris Machut, SiteTrax.io. Sorry, screwed that up. This has been another episode of Cargo Chronicles. Reach out to Chris if you want to know where your stuff is. I think I'm going to use it the next time I got to move back to Chicago and put my crap on there so I can track where it goes. So just more of a fun time. We'll be back again soon with another episode of Cargo Chronicles.